everybody? Happy Friday. Listen, I was gonna take off yesterday and today, but I've just been feeling real inspired to do some Call of Duty content and almost doing it more like the classic style, the OG, kind of just yapping while there's some gameplay in the background and kind of giving my thoughts on the overall scene in general. And obviously yesterday was Thanksgiving and I had nephews there and cousins and, you know, brother-in-laws and all that stuff. And we were kind of talking about Call of Duty. Obviously, you know, as a creator, I don't know what else to talk about. They're like, hey man, what are you doing for a living? And I'm like, well, I play Call of Duty. I talk about Call of Duty. It's always on my brain. So we get to talking, and of course, a lot of these people that are my age, maybe a little older, they're always saying Call of Duty, the OG was better. The OG Call of Duty's the golden age. And we kind of got into a little debate. And, you know, we were discussing, are older Call of Duties actually better? Is it a little bit of nostalgia in the glasses? Is the newer Call of Duties actually better? We're just older. And it inspired me to be like, you know what? We should do a little yap session here and put it out there and get everybody's opinion in the chat, because I know we have some newer fans. We have some older fans of the franchise. But I made a little list in front of me here, and I want to talk about the strengths of older Call of Duty. I want to talk about the strengths of newer Call of Duty. Or did I say older Call of Duty? Strengths of older Call of Duty, strengths of newer Call of Duty, and then obviously the negatives of older Call of Duty and the negatives of the newer Call of Duty. That's a lot of Call of Duty being said, but pretty much at the end of it, we'll go over like, hey, was it actually better back then? So let's dive right in and let's talk about some older Call of Duties, because listen, it's always warm and fuzzy when we want to talk about these, because we do have we have that nostalgia for sure. And I think a lot of the things that old Call of Duty did were legit. Like there is a reason why these games were actually good back in the day. And I have the list right in front of me here, and I'll start off with this. I feel like back then the gameplay was very simple, very arcadey, very fast, but nothing insane. To kind of summarize, I feel like we've talked about in the past videos with newer Call of Duty, you know, you're sliding everywhere, you're bouncing everywhere, and this had a very just simple movement style, wasn't doing anything crazy, it was very guns up. And it was like the first time Call of Duty, it felt like you were in a game that it mattered. It felt like kind of real life, but you still had that flexibility to be kind of, again, the word is arcadey. Arcadey, it was like you could jump and free flow and felt so smooth. That's what made Call of Duty jump out to become the best game, you know, best selling game of all time. Just how simple but smooth it was. And you know, this was an era of no FOV. This was no era. This was the pick 10 stuff, the simplified create a class. It was I just used the word simple. Everything felt simple. And I know, shout out to my grandpa, man. He used to always tell me, keep it simple, stupid. And, you know, I just feel like Call of Duty, this is when there was not a lot going on. It was three things. It was basic. Everything within the multiplayer was very easy to understand, and you just went out there and played, and it was so fun. So I would just say old Call of Duty, simple, number one. Number two, I would say the iconic maps. I mean, for me, you go into these older Call of Duties and you can just pick out so many. You can probably name almost every single map in COD 4 through Black Ops 2, even Ghosts. They were terrible maps in Ghosts, but you can still remember a lot of them maybe because of how bad they were. But at least COD 4 to Black Ops 2, they were just bangers, man. And I don't think it's not a coincidence that every single time a new Call of Duty releases, they bring back a map or two, and sometimes 3, 4, 5, because of how good they were. You know, the 3-lane, another thing, the simplicity of them, you just had fun playing them. And there obviously is some ones that they've never brought back that are absolutely amazing, and they should be brought back. Just the styles of them, the way they looked, and this will go into the next point as well. just everything about the maps. You really can't name a ton of bad ones in this era of gaming, in this era of COD. So the maps, unbelievable, unbelievable. So to go alongside that, this is another point. It's the strong identity that these games had. I've said it in a previous video, and I want to say it again. Actually, I might have said it in a tweet, but I always think about the map Airfield from World at War. Some of you guys, this may be going way too far back. You're like, what is old man talking about? This map was split. It was in every single mode. It was in zombies, it was in multiplayer, it was in campaign. But every single version had a different identity. The zombies was dark and foggy. The campaign, you were in like the actual war, so it felt kind of like gritty and stuff was going on. And then the multiplayer side, it flowed because it was the layout for a multiplayer map. I just think about you just felt like you were doing something real. And this was actually one of the discussions that really made me bring this to a video. I was talking with my my nephew, and he was just like, we were playing COD 4 and it felt like we were fighting for something. You know, at that time in history, there was a real war going on, and you were playing as that in that war. So when you were going into these campaign missions and these multiplayer games, you're like, wow, I'm seeing this on TV. I am seeing real humans do this. And it felt like it just made it that more just realistic and meant something. And I don't really know the wording for that, but for me, when there's tie into real life and real history, it just makes it that much more unique and better of a game. Again, World at War, one of my favorite games of all time, because I love World War II. I don't love World War II. I love learning about World War II. And when you were able to play as some of these missions and play as these soldiers, you really feel like you are learning something, you're a part of something. And World at War was teaching you a history lesson while you were playing the game. And so that is something that they've completely lost in the newer ones, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But a strong identity is something that I just miss with these newer Call of Duties, and they had them in the old, even in BO2, where it was a futuristic war, you felt like that could actually happen. It wasn't just some made up crazy thing. It was like, wow, this is 10, 15 years from now, this could happen. And so let's move on to the next one. We have to talk about it. The lower skilled, you know, matchmaking is really what it is. SBMM really wasn't as strong as it was. And to go alongside that, I mean, I think, in my opinion, people just weren't that good at video games back then. You know, the people that came out of that really grew during this time period were the Nate Shots and the T Martins and the Scumps. And they grew because they were teaching people how to get better. Because back then, people were rocking a 40-inch TV, no headset, a regular controller, and times have changed. You know, people have scuffs, people have the Elite controllers, they have a Turtle Beach on, they have a 25-inch monitor. Like, everybody is better. So there's a little bit of nostalgia there where you're like, man, I'm playing some bad people. And so, you know, that's also a real fun thing, and that's why it's hard to replicate that nowadays, because that was just early online gaming, and it's never going to hit like that, I feel like, because everybody was so new, and now it's a 20-year-old game at this point. But yeah, so those are a few things that I feel like the game just did so well. Simple, iconic maps, strong identity, and then obviously the matchmaking back then was just fantastic. So let's now go into the older Call of Duties, what they actually did that maybe weren't that good. You know, obviously we have these what is it, rose tinted glasses? Is that what the wording is called? We have it when we talk about these old games, but when you go back to them, there are some things that are kind of annoying. So, you know, with a lot of these games, they did not get a lot of updates, if you remember correctly. The guns that you used at launch for the majority of the game, more than likely, they were going to be the guns that you finished with. And going along BO6, I complained about that. They were similar metas all year. You know, BO2 was the MSMC. Modern Warfare 2, you could one-man army noob tube the entire year. We still talk about that because of how overpowered it was back then, and they didn't do anything about it. Now that had something to do with the, you know, the developers and Activision and blah 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 blah. But a lot of the time, even if there isn't that animosity, M16 COD 4, anybody, you hop on that game, you can kill somebody in 2 bullets. Frag ×3. This stuff would be nerfed in 13 seconds in modern day Call of Duty. There would be absolutely no, it would be all over Twitter. It would be all over everything. It would be nerfed so quickly. And I think part of the fun sometimes back then was that this stuff was overpowered, but it was annoying. And so there wasn't a lot of updates back then. So that's one thing. Updates were there might have been 3 or 4 updates a year. You know, and it usually coincided with the map packs. And we'll talk about that. Actually, we can just talk about that now. The next thing is the map packs. Now, before you throw tomatoes at your screen, map packs were kind of cool. You know, they were. But the biggest problem with the map packs that they did was it ended up dividing the community. So if you didn't know this, if you didn't play back then, if you bought a map pack and your buddy didn't play, your buddy didn't get that map pack, you couldn't play with those maps if you teamed up. Makes sense. Maybe that was something they could have done back in the day to make it better, where like, hey, if you bought them, you could bring your friend along, almost like a black card from Planet Fitness, where it's like, hey, I got the $25 version, I'm bringing my buddy along for free. But they didn't. And then obviously in World at War was actually the worst one. They would have the maps pop up anyway. The maps would pop up, and then if you didn't have the maps, you would just boot into the game like you were, it would load you into it, and then as soon as it was about to start, you get kicked out. So it wouldn't even recognize that you didn't have the map packs. They fixed that later, but so the dividing was tough. It was tough back then because I used to like the map packs. I used to buy them for the zombies and stuff. My buddies weren't that big into COD, so they wouldn't do it. And we still played together, but then you're like, well, dude, I want to play the new maps, and it got divided. It was sad. So I think connection back in the day, I think we think that we think that sometimes the connection nowadays is not that good. Dude, you get a 2-bar lobby when you go back and play these old Call of Duties, and you are skipping around like you were on AOL dial-up. So connection back then was also not the greatest thing. And I think another thing too that we also, it kind of goes alongside with connection. Y'all remember when you would start the game, you would start crushing the other team, and the other guy on the other team was getting crushed, and unfortunately he was the host, and he would quit the game, and when you quit the game, it would end the game. So it would not find a new host, you would just end, and you'd be like 10-0, and the game would end at 120 to 50. And so there's the little small things like that you kind of forget about over time, that it's unfortunate. But yes, that was a thing. And then I guess just that's really the main things when you think about it. You know, not a lot of updates, dividing the player base. You know, there really weren't a lot of hackers back then because it was mainly on console. It was more like modders, which I know is hacking, but it was like, you know, let me get you, it was a different culture. It was like, let me get you to 10th prestige for 1,600 Microsoft points. But there wasn't a lot of crazy like, oh wow, that guy's wall hacking, you know? So, and then obviously the connection was not that good back then. So yeah, there was a few things that I think you kind of forget about with the old school, but let's head over to the newer ones and let's talk about what they do good and what they do bad. Okay, so when we talk about the newer CODs, I got a feeling there's not gonna be a lot of people out there that think that there's a lot more that they do right in the newer CODs. And maybe you have a point, but I got a few down here, and maybe you can, you know, maybe you can agree with some of them. You know, we got to give a little bit of love to the newer CODs because they have done some things right. But I want to start off with, I feel like in general, I do like the ability to like, okay, so I'm getting a little bit addicted to the camo grind here. And I know I used to have the opinion of, I kind of wish it was just headshots again. You got it naturally, but I'm slowly starting to kind of be like, hey, the unique challenges and stuff like that they have actually kind of makes the game fun. Now, the people that are getting camos in like 24 hours, that is insane to me. That is, you're supposed to kind of spread it out throughout the game's life cycle. You know what I mean? But going for these headshots and going for these double kills, it's kind of given me this challenge inside of the game, and I've been really enjoying it. So I think in general, like camos and the camo grind has actually gotten a lot better. I mean, you look at some of the old camos and they're not that good. Okay. So like, if you look at like gold and like Modern Warfare 3 or like diamond and BO2, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, they ain't good. They started getting good like near the BO3 era of Call of Duty. So I would say that is definitely a positive. I think the challenges in general have gotten very good. I think another thing that I kind of like is, I want to say this carefully because I actually don't know if I believe it sometimes, but I like that they tried to add new modes. And so for me, a mode that they did not take advantage of in the newer CODs and kind of triple dip into it. I don't know what the wording I'm looking for there is, but double down, not triple dip, double down. Food on the brain, I guess. But like gunfight. So I love that they've been adding these modes over time. There's prop hunt, gunfight with the tournaments that they had in MW19 is something that should have come back every single year. They did a phenomenal job with that mode. And it's not a crazy mode to build. It's 2v2 with random weapons. And then you get rewards. Like, that should have been something that they did. And that's a very unique thing that MW19 added that I absolutely loved. And then obviously Cold War is adding prop hunt. And obviously I know that's been in previous Call of Duties, but I feel like it's become like a staple of the newer ones. And I really enjoy these, like these fun modes. We used to love those type of things back in the day, and I think they have done a good job of bringing fun events to Call of Duty. I know one of the things that I did when I was still playing Warzone was I don't even know what it was called. It was like the 420 event, you know, where you were bouncing all around and picking up these weird things. I don't even know what it's called. Somebody in the comments will know. So those types of things, those events, those fun modes, the get higher mode, those are really good. And I think when they bring those fun events into the game and don't take COD so seriously, it's when we actually get some things that we're like, wow, that was actually good. You know, modern COD ain't so bad, you know? So I would say camo grind, I would say events are very fun. And again, the free maps, the free weapons, this is another point here. To kind of counter the DLC map packs back in old CODs dividing the player base, we do get a lot of content for free nowadays, man. I mean, it is pretty. MW3 blew us away with how much content we got. We were getting aftermarket parts, we were getting maps, we were getting guns, we were getting all sorts of stuff. And that really showed me what Call of Duty could do if they were really working hard. And that's not to like be mean to any of the developers, but like it felt like that was a team. Sledgehammer felt like they were a team that were like, yes, we are passionate about this game. We want to give people something to play. And they did that. And if you could mimic MW3's content schedule, I think a lot of people would be happy with modern Call of Duty if they picked a good setting too. But Black Ops 7 is supposed to have that this year. We'll come back to this video when it actually, you know, at the end of the year and see if they did what MW3 did. But free content, not dividing the player base, everybody can unlock it. I mean, you can't be mad about that, you know? You can't. So I guess I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty good amount there. Obviously, connection has improved, you know, tremendously. And hit detection. I mean, MW19's hit detection is special, man. I say that all the time. Infinity Ward's always kind of been known for good hit detection. Just modern connection in general, obviously. And then I would say that's a pretty good list of things that modern COD actually does well. But we have to get to we have to get to what it does worse, and you know, that's I mean, we might go here for a while. Well, you know, let's try to keep it a little bit more simple here. We don't want to spend all day on this video, but a lot of this is going back to the identity of Call of Duty. This would be my first point. Identity crisis. Every game feels like they don't know what they want to do. Whether it's the Black Ops 7 campaign where it becomes an Elden Ring game, whether it's Modern Warfare 2, the new one, where they had all their mechanics all over the place to match the DMZ that they had introduced. I could keep going. I mean, it's just Vanguard, whether it was a World War II shooter, and then there was Snoop Dogg with a laser gun on Shipment 1944. You're just like, where are we at here? What's going on? What are we trying to be? Are we trying to be a realistic shooter? Are we trying to be an arcade shooter that is from space? Which we don't want to be. Call of Duty needs to figure out what their identity needs to go back to where the war that you're in feels like a war that could happen, or a war that has happened, because it always makes you feel like you're a part of something bigger. So the identity for the newer CODs is all over the place. And I think that's why BO7 is really struggling this year, because they have no identity. This was supposed to be a BO2 sequel. If you would have told me it was a BO2 sequel and you didn't have the cover up there and I played the campaign, I would have thought you were celebrating 420 a little bit early. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think another thing with Call of Duty 2, not Call of Duty 2, but the new Call of Duty, is this Fortnite-esque, and I know that kind of goes along with identity, but I'm actually using it as a different point. With this Fortnite style of, there's stuff that you can only unlock for a certain amount of time, and it makes you have this fear of missing out. Old Call of Duty, if you wanted to get a DLC, you could just get a DLC whenever you want it. You could buy it in January, you could buy it in August. And sometimes I feel like these seasons come out, and I'm all for the stuff being free. That's awesome. But I don't like that you can only get this thing for a certain time, and then if you want to get it after the season, it's like you have to buy a blueprint of it or something like that. And it's just like, just let me unlock it whenever I want to. That's why you got people quitting the game. It's like, oh, that guy's got the growl and he got it in the battle pass, but I can't get it, and I don't want to pay 20 bucks for the blueprint, so I'll just stop playing the game. So there's way too much of that. There's way too much fear of missing out in modern games and modern Call of Duty. I would say also, you know, we have to talk about more microtransactions. Obviously, we have to talk about how there is just stuff left and right where it's just all over the place. You buy this, you buy that. Battle pass, what's the other thing? Black Cell, collab here, collab there. Bro, we're done with it. Give us simple skins. If you want to put them out there, that's fine. I get you got to make some money, but don't push it in our face so much. The one thing I hated about BO6, I remember right tabbing to get to my loadouts, but they put the event, the Beavis and Butthead event prior to that. And so you had to watch the event to get to your loadout, and it was like a cutscene and all sorts of stuff. It was so annoying. So that is something that they got to stop doing. Stop pushing the store like it's like you're going on on Amazon. It's like, no, I'm just playing a game, man. I'll go to the store if I want to go to the store. You know? Now, my two final things here for why Call of Duty is, and I don't want to beat a dead horse with this one, but I do think the skill-based matchmaking fatigue is definitely a very, very real thing. Obviously, we talked about how it was looser back in the day. That partially could be because people were not as good, but they've definitely put us in some sort of rat race wheel science experiment the last couple years. And people are just done with it. People do not want that anymore. People want to just get on, enjoy, relax, prop their feet up. And again, I'm not saying that every lobby should be people that don't have thumbs, like I said yesterday, but I think there needs to be a balance. And sometimes lobbies are good, sometimes lobbies are bad. And again, I said it yesterday, there needs to be some sort of like layout to like, what are we getting here with skill-based matchmaking? What is the parameters of everything, so we know, so we don't feel like we are some sort of science experiment. And I think people have gotten tired of it. They're gonna just leave, and they're leaving. This is a massive reason why people are leaving Call of Duty. It's just it is what it is. And if they don't address it, they're just gonna keep losing people. And that's why you see people playing Fortnite and Arc Raiders and Battlefield, because they've been very open with like, hey, here's how we do stuff. And I can't blame people, you know, I can't blame people. And then I think what the new COD tries to do, but sometimes it actually makes the game worse, is how much content that they recycle. You know, maps and guns and all that coming back, it's great, but I think it needs to be more spread apart, if that makes sense. Like, make it an event when something comes back like that. Make it something that it's like, whoa, the intervention is coming back, because there's so much new content that we've been provided, that when something old comes back, it's kind of unique and fun and exciting. Rather than now, you just feel like every Call of Duty that's gonna come out, you're gonna get a couple maps that are old, you're gonna get a couple guns that are old, and nostalgia can sell to a point. But when you're dependent on it, that's when you kind of lose people. Like MW3, very fun game. Some people were like, wow, they're just bringing back all the MW2 maps. This gets boring. We played these maps for an entire year or two. It's fun for a little bit. And luckily they had content to kind of, you know, balance that. But with BO6, you know, we've already had 3 or 4 remasters. It feels like we're going to be getting more BO2 remasters. In my head, I'm just like, you might as well just make a BO2 remaster at this point. We don't need all the funky movement. Just give us BO2 remastered. But I don't know. I think that's something that people have gotten fatigued of as well. It doesn't feel special to get the Car 98 back anymore, because it's been in 85 Call of Duties. So I would dial back with that. So let's wrap it up here. Is older Call of Duty better? I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, it is. It is. But it's not to say that newer Call of Duty doesn't have stuff in it that is actually new, better, healthier for the game, healthier for the player base. But I've said it before in other videos, and I'm gonna say it in this one. We gotta get back to that basic style COD 4 through Black Ops 2 movement, and then bring in the systems of the newer Call of Duty. Imagine Call of Duty 4 through BO2 having the camo grind that we have now, and having the free content that we have now, and the better connection that we have now, and the newness, the new maps, the new guns, not all remakes. That's when Call of Duty will return to its former glory. And will it ever do that? We don't know. But in the meantime, I'm gonna make videos and encourage these developers, and hopefully they see it. But let me know, guys, what do you think? What's your favorite thing about the newer Call of Duties? Let's have something positive in the comments here. If you're watching this video, I might be live on Twitch grinding camos. If you made it this far, make sure you hit me with a follow over there. I'm gonna be doing that. I'm just chipping away at it. It's very fun. So, and if you want to follow me on social media, Tdawgsmitty on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, kind of just know when I go live and just tweet random stuff about Call of Duty. But appreciate the love, and obviously more videos coming. I'm just enjoying these daily rants, man. I really am. So have a great day. Hope you have a great Friday. We'll probably see you in another rant tomorrow. Okay, I'm gonna go camo grind.